Yes. Okay, here we are. So, this is the first episode of the new podcast where we are going to be very human. We are going to be humans on a spiritual journey. And I was just talking about how I was messing around with the stupid little heater, almost falling off the bed, telling myself I need to be ready for the super spiritual podcast. But yeah, that's the thing. We try to be super perfect for the internet, but this journey is not perfect. I can't hear you.
You want me to talk? I
Oh,
don't know if we were
you were not,
talking yet.
and there was no, and there was no sound.
Do you
So,
want me to say something?
everybody that is
Okay.
listening, this is not going to be a podcast where you will learn a bunch of stuff, but this is going to be a podcast where you're going to be able to relate to the very human side of the spiritual journey and what goes on behind the scenes and how we feel during this whole thing. Do you have anything to add?
Hello.
Yes,
Well, can I play a song that I heard that was like play this like for our first podcast, like the energy behind it?
do it. Yes.
Can I say that? Okay, this is kind of funny. So are you ready?
I don't know because I don't know what the
Okay.
song's going to
Can you
be, so
hear it?
I cannot. Is anything happening?
Can you
Nobody's
hear
hearing
it?
me.
Okay, you can't hear it?
No,
Okay,
put it
sorry.
against the
Okay, try it
microphone.
again. Okay, let me try. I'm like all red. Okay.
I can't hear it.
Okay.
Sing it
All
for
right.
us. Just maybe you're
Anyways,
supposed to sing it. This is your
okay.
guide sabotaging your devices so that you have to now sing and use your voice.
Totally. Okay. I heard salt and pepper. Push it. It's like, push it. Anyways, okay, first, hi. And second, I do a lot of music. Like I hear music, like even, today I sent music to you, like, break my stride or whatever. Nothing's gonna break my stride. But anyways, I just heard play. I was like, oh, I'm gonna play this tune for Deborah, for the podcast because it just keeps me in my life, like keeps things real and keeps me like laughing at things when we can be going through some like rough things, but I use music a lot to just like lighten my life, you know.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
and I think that that's the best way. Like some people are like, "Oh, you can't listen to mainstream music anymore. It's not spiritual." I don't think so. I think there because like my Spotify is an angel. I always joke like there's a Spotify angel and it just like gives me all these signs and songs and it like today, 3 or 4 songs in a row that are the exact answer to stuff that was on my mind and I'm like looking at my laptop like you did it again. You did it
Isn't
again.
it's so true. It's so true. I hear, and I'm laughing so hard because I mean, I know we're talking about like humans having a human experience and not being perfect. Like all the things, I'm laughing at all the things I did bring to this session, but I was called to pull an animal spirit card for us. And I was like, okay, what? Like, yes, Deborah, I mean, I met Deborah in 2022, and she was a lifeline and helped me through some tremendous, um, when I was in the depths of some big transformation. And so I was like, what animal spirit card? Yes, this is like an animal spirit guidebook. But I just was like, just tell us, like, I'm just curious which animal wants to come through. And of course, it's the hyena. Humor, wit, and sarcasm.
It's the hyena, and that's like people
Look,
that know me well. And when I start laughing, it turns into a hyena slash dolphin seagull festival laugh.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that
I
is
just
super funny.
so that
That
it was. I
card.
was like, of course that is. So I just had to bring like a little bit of this to our podcast because it says the hyena personality is a jokester and a crowd pleaser, but below the surface, It's like just, being true to yourself, being charming, witty, fun to be around. Like, and so I think balancing those, right? Especially, I mean, I could go into astrology and like kind of where we are right now, but with the sun in Aquarius, balancing that out with the Leo, like the one that's using their creativity and laughter and their heart, balancing that heart and mind. So anyways, I thought that was hysterical that I pulled the
The
hyena for
hysterical
us.
hyena.
The
Haha.
hysterical hyena. And I love when you and I get funny and goofy.
Yeah, it
So
is funny because when we met, the sessions were all very serious. They were in a very serious tone because it was all serious stuff we were discussing, working through. But then
yeah,
we started to get to know each other better. And we were like, hey, but you're actually pretty cool. Yes, you're also pretty cool. Let's talk about some normal stuff. Yes, let's do that. And then we just started talking about all this normal stuff, just human, normal frustrations, stuff we're going through, thoughts, all this normal stuff.
totally, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I saw like the undulation, like going to this like deep. We went to the cave, like into a very deep cave, and then we've also soared to the clouds and laughed and um all of it, everything in between, and that's what this is about. Like sometimes it starts, super light, where the friendship, has a light sense about it, and then you're not going through anything heavy. And then when you go through something heavy, you move to that. But it doesn't seem to be the case these days. It seems that we we just dive deep into what we're going through, and then we end up being able to laugh with each other,
Mm-hmm. And that's the
So
best thing because, like, when you are constantly in this serious, and I'm not talking serious star system, I'm talking serious energy, then because I'm working on a serious portrait, and now I am talking about the star system. Uh-oh, she's choking on her drink. Anyway, when you're always in this super serious energy, and then you are going to make the things heavier. You're going to make them way heavier than they need to be. And these spirit guides are often super funny, like
yeah,
themselves. They make jokes when, like, I don't know, you are also pretty clairvoyant, right? You really see things. So they will
hmm
use images that are really funny sometimes, I
yeah,
feel. And I'm like, what
yeah,
are you showing me? This is super hilarious. My guides, they're showing me this stuff in a really funny way. And then I hear the same thing from other people. Their guides are showing them things in a really funny way. So it's like
yeah.
humor comes straight from God. God is super funny.
That's really fantastic. I recently have been channeling or like getting my messages through actors and musicians and actually people who've passed. So, for example, John Lennon came through yesterday. I have heard Marilyn Monroe come through. I've heard Betty White. I mean, Betty White. Oh, so with Pluto, I'm going to talk about astrology a lot because that's my medium. That's what comes through. I'm holding my hands up because I feel like it like literally comes in through my hands, and it's like we're Geo Lady. It's like the painting Deborah
I was
actually
gonna
did.
say, isn't she in the portrait with her hands
Yes.
like this?
Yeah, she is. So I've got this beautiful portrait that Deborah made for me, and she channeled my higher self. And she's like, Carrie, your higher self is hysterical. Like, she's making me play this like wild music. And
Yeah.
like, she's like, I mean, it was like all these colors and all this, geometric design. I mean, it's the most beautiful thing. I literally have her next to my bedside, and I look at her every day, and I'm like, but it makes sense now because I see the geometry in all of us. I see, if you look at an astrology chart, all the points are making sacred geometry, right? And so we're in, this Aquarian age. And so for me, what's funny is I've really kind of had a bad taste in my mouth about Aquarians. for multiple reasons, different people in my life who have been Aquarius, sun signs. And I've just, okay, that's, I'm like, oh, you're that. Okay. Like instantly judged that. And so what I'm learning is that when each season comes about, and like the sun's in Aquarius right now, I'm learning to love that sign and let that sign be a reflection for me. And so Aquarians are like so funny, so witty, which is perfect that we're, they so witty. And then in a way that's detached, meaning they don't take themselves too seriously, very like collective oriented. So I've had this like hiccup, with Aquarius, and now I'm like, have a love affair. And so like Jim Carrey, for example, has his Mercury. So how he communicates is very Aquarian. So yes, he's like a comedian. That was his medium. That was how he came through, into this space, but he's so spiritual, the messages he has are like, woo. And then John Lennon has his Aquarius, his moon in Aquarius. So I started getting messages from these people, and I looked at their charts, and they all have these Aquarius placements, which is wild because Pluto, just entered Aquarius. We had Mercury. Now we're going to have Venus and Mars. So kind of how you're talking about star systems, I'm now channeling, and I hear these people come through, and I love their messages. Like when I looked at Betty White, she is hysterical, and then even John Lennon, he's
Yeah.
very like, he was very serious, and a very, obviously, peace lover, make love not war, but he had a really cool, very like, he is a funny guy too. So
I
anyways,
think
that
you
was
have to
my
be. If you want to be really spiritual, well, nobody wants to be really, I don't know. You just are. It just happens. You kind of just roll into this whole spirituality thing because it happens to you. I have never met one person that said, I'm gonna go do this. It's a hobby, it's fun, let's go do this. No, it's not fun. Well, it become fun when you make it into a fun thing, and like when you see that the humor of all of it, and the way that these guides will show you synchronicities, how they will show you signs. Some of them even like swear, and it's like, what are you doing? You are a spirit guide. You're not supposed to say stuff like that. What's wrong with you? It's like my friend. I have a friend, and she also works with Morgan Le Fay. I also work with her because she's the Avalon High Priestess. And my friend says, Morgan Le Fay calls me a bitch. I'm like, yeah, she calls you too. She calls me a bitch too. Oh, okay, then we're not going crazy. This is actually happening. Yes,
Yeah.
that's they use the language that we have
Yes.
because our brain is a filter. So if they want to bring forth a specific energy or frequency, or they're really serious, then my friend is like, yeah, and I called upon her because she was having problems with like somebody at work, and she said, bitch, you know what to do. It's like, am I making this up? And it's like, no, this is real. This
Oh
this
my
is this stuff
gosh.
is part of the spiritual journey. And
Yeah.
people, they don't talk about it. Oh, I'm not going to write that on Instagram. What are people going to think of me? No, you should write this stuff because everybody's going through some of these experiences. And if you're not sharing it, then people are going to think, oh, that can't be real. Like, or these songs that start playing that are just hilarious. It's like, no, I'm just trying to find meaning behind these things. But it's
Yeah.
happening to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I'm seeing, specific people coming through. I'm like, oh, this is relatable. Like we all know Jim Carrey, we know Betty White, we know, and even like me looking into it, I'll be shown like, look, I'll hear, I heard Matthew McConaughey, but I heard look up Livin, living, and I was like, what? Why am I seeing that? And that was from Dazed and Confused when Matthew McConaughey in the movie, shared that line that's so popular. And then I looked up, how that relates to the current transits and like how we can use his message and that message from the movie now, like make it relatable. Yes, it's funny. It draws us in because we take a breath. Like when we laugh, we're breathing. Like we're also relaxing our nervous system. We're relaxing our vagus nerve. You know, there's things that you can tap into, and like it's actually working with your body, getting you out of your head, you know, into your body. And that's what
Mhm.
this does, right? Because we can get, like you said, you don't necessarily choose. I mean, yes, we came in and we said, yes, we want this experience. Here we go, you know, and it's like not necessarily a magic carpet ride, but you can look back and see, you know, all these different points. And so laughter to me feels so important right now, like in this time that we're in, because we've all been through a big, like, there's been a lot that's happened in the last, what would you say, 4 years? I would say the last, you know,
Yeah,
10, like the last 10, you know, 10 years, but the last couple years. And so
definitely.
yeah, we need some like, and it helps move the energy. And so when you can laugh about something, to me, I'm able to let it go and release again, like this ability to use your body to, like, you know, yes, it's somatic. We could talk about, you know, somatic practices and how to use that. But you don't even have to talk about it. Like when you do these
It's all
things,
about
it's
also being in this experience, just being a human being.
right. Yeah.
It's not about, oh yeah, what practices can we do? The next modality, what are we gonna do? What healing circle, blah blah blah. Maybe just try to do like something fun that is really simple. Like the
Yeah.
most I had, I've had 2 very hectic years with a lot of transformation, rapid shifts, a lot of just changes, a lot of changes. And there were a few months that were really difficult. And we lived on a farm. And those were some really difficult months. But at the same time, they were some of the months where I laughed the most out of the entire 2 years, where I
Yeah.
was just laughing and with people, and just silly things happened and you start laughing, and it's when you realize like, oh, okay, I can shift this whole energy because
Yeah.
I can choose to now have fun in this moment.
Well, that reminds me of you sharing that in 2022 when I was going through, you know, what felt to me like, oh, on my knee moments. You know, one of the darker times for me, I was in my closet and I remember connecting with my grandmother and I was just like please, like I was in such, I finally just like was in such deep surrender and asked, you know, guides. Specifically, I was in communication with my grandmother a lot, and she said, put on your running shoes. And I was like, what? She said, put on your sneakers. And I was like, okay, it was midnight. I was like, all right. So I put on my sneakers and I was listening to sad music. And she's like, change the music, like put on some happy music. And I was like, okay. And she's like, go on a run. And so I literally was running what felt like I was running on air. Like, and at that point I hadn't been, you know, really exercising. Had completely stopped running and dancing and like doing all these things that I've always loved. And she just was there to remind me of like, you know what to do. Put your sneakers on, go for a run, put on happy music. And not, it was like music that just, I mean, I was like laughing when I heard I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was from like noon or midnight to 2 a.m. I went on a run. It was like a Leo full moon. I remember it was
For
Aquarius
two
season.
hours
And for 2 hours, I was outside.
Oh,
I did snow angels. I did snow angels in the snow because it was snowing. There was like 4 inches of snow. It was and I didn't feel it was like the most effortless thing I've ever experienced. And I was doing like snow angels, and I was like, oh my, I came home and I was like, I've got this. Like I felt like I could do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was tapped into that energy.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then I utilized that for the rest of the duration. Like I was able to go for runs and I was able to shift my mood with music. And it was pretty amazing. Like I was very grateful to hear that. Like, put on your sneakers. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't put those on in a long time. So, anyways, it
See,
reminded me of that.
spirit guides reminding us to exercise, and to be healthy.
Yeah. So it's super simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it wasn't like some earth-shattering, message. It was like sneakers and music. Oh,
Yeah, because we like
yeah.
to overcomplicate things. I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, is this spiritual enough? Is running, is going for a run, going for a walk, but is that spiritual? Because everybody can do that. Yeah, that's the whole point. We can all be spiritual by simply doing things like going on a walk, listening to some music, and just being conscious of what am I listening to? What is my intention when I listen to this music? What frequency am I in right now? How do I feel? You don't have to be super spiritual and look all super spiritual to be very spiritual, because some of the most spiritual people that I know aren't even doing any of this work. They are just really good people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like our kids, look at our kids. They're not trying to be spiritual. And some of the most, profound things have come out of, my kids' mouths where I'm like jaw drop. They're not trying to be spiritual. They're just in the moment. They're just being themselves, not
Mm-hmm.
overthinking, not trying to be a guru or someone that, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
it's true. It's true, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think why we get along so well, because both of us are just like we're gonna be ourselves, and that's why we connected so well. Because like you immediately felt, oh, this is just a normal person. This is not some guru lady that's gonna tell me how I have to live. Like, I don't know. I'm sharing from my experience. That's literally what my coaching, mentorship, whatever I do is. I go through stuff. I see, oh, this has been this and this. Um, like I learned from this. Okay, I'm not gonna do that again. Now let me go share this with other people.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually did initially was kind of kind of like, ooh, Deborah, is I guess, we have a tendency to put people on a pedestal or, say, oh, they know more than me or they have more experience or they're, these things, right? Because I was actually led to you by a friend and instantly I knew like I had to reach out to you. I was like, okay, I'm not sure why. There was enough signs and ways that I was like, Deborah, I'm going to reach out to you. And then we did have these like you shared things that directly related to what I was going through and the comfort and that you're like, oh, I get what you're going through. I've been through that. And it was like such a real, because there really wasn't anyone that I actually knew and could talk to. And so in that way, spirit, universe, God, what have you, brought me to you because they were like, oh, she's your person. Like you said, it's all a mathematical equation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, like, go get a reading. And I'd never had, an Akashic Records reading. And I heard, right? Like I hear a lot of things, like clairvoyance. That's clairvoyance, right? When you hear, no, clairaudience.
Clairaudience.
Yeah, clairaudient. So I hear a lot of like, okay, do this, And so it's like, yeah, just ask her for this, do this. And I just followed it. And it was the most sound, as much as those who were close to me didn't understand, like my family or, specific, they're like, what are you doing? Why aren't you going to an actual, you know, someone that has a PhD? Like, why aren't you? And I was like, oh, she does. She has a PhD in life. She is more
PhD
knowledgeable.
in spirituality.
She's been on Earth School and she's been very open to learning. Whereas I actually interviewed quite a few counselors and I didn't feel the connection. It was more
Mm-hmm.
from this cerebral place and they weren't understanding. I was like, oh, this it's not a fit. And I stopped worrying about having to explain, to family members or when people were questioning, who are you? Like, who is this person and what are her qualifications? I love those questions because, we don't, this is our school. Like we get
Mm-hmm.
initiated through experience and the amount that you went through and, came out the other side, and what you learned, I mean, it was exactly what I needed. And I came out the other side.
Yeah. And it's crazy
So,
because after I worked with you, I had more and more clients that were in similar situations that wanted to work on all of these same things. And they were also like, whoa, like at first I had no idea that you went through all of these things that you went through. And then you talk about your experiences. It's like you wouldn't say that you went through all that stuff when you see like what you do and like how optimistic you are, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, because I'm just choosing to be happy. And why would I want to hold on to all this dead weight? That's not going to help me.
yeah. Plus you're helping other, I mean, what we go through, we grow through, as we say, but once we go through these initiations, we're able to help other people. And that's the gift, right? Is that there can be, people, again, like who are professional counselors. I've gone to counseling for really long. I went to counseling. I'm not saying, don't go to counseling. I think I just followed my heart and my intuition and what I was hearing. It was, it maybe didn't make sense, but to me it made sense. Like I just had to follow, this is what I'm being led to do. And it actually was beautifully orchestrated beyond what I could have planned for myself. Like my brain was like, oh yeah, meet with a counselor. And I got recommendations from people, and I would meet with, like, talk to them, and it just didn't work out. Like literally it just wasn't a match. Like it's like the universe wouldn't let me make it happen. You know what I mean? Like I was blocked in a way. And so, yeah, working with you, it just was like easy. Like it literally was like, yes, like full path, full golden, follow the yellow brick road, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I
Because
just,
a lot
yeah.
of them, they just are missing this energetic aspect. And that's why I started my other podcast, The Alchemy of Love, because I do like a lot of psychology around attachment styles, codependency, narcissistic, borderline, all these personality disorders. I like how psychology can give you a structure to learn more about what are all these things, how does it work in the brain. But it's not enough. It's not enough to explain the connection between two people, the past life connections, sometimes the energetic connection, the fact that there are energetic attachments that can attach to these people that can explain why that manifests in the brain. That's an energetic explanation, stuff like that. So I want to look at all that stuff together, kind of combine all of that. So no, I'm not a shrink. I'm not a psychologist, but I feel like now that doesn't really matter. I see people that are in their 20s. I've had clients like that I've been working with that I talk to that when they open their mouth, they have more wisdom than some people in their 60s or 70s that I know. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, where did you learn all this? Oh, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And now they've integrated all this stuff and they are still super optimistic. They're in a great mood. They are telling other people about, okay, manifest your dream life, do all this stuff because you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're remembering, I know we're like, I know this was like supposed to be like funny, but what this is like real conversation, right?
Yeah,
Like
this
we're
is the
remembering our
real life
gifts.
stuff.
Yeah, we're remembering our gifts. And I remember, I bring Claudia up, my daughter, because at a very young age she was channeling stuff, and she would draw pictures and show me, she's like, oh, and she would talk about God, and she would talk about Jesus, and she would bring these things up, and it was stuff I had never talked to her about. I'd never shared it with her. I mean, she would see people who'd passed, she would draw graveyards, she would say, oh, I'm sending, so and so this today. And so I'm amazed at a lot of I mean, I have a lot of friends who are in their 20s. Like I love talking to teenagers. I love talking to people in their 20s because I'm just blown away. Like the things that they're talking about, they're so wise. And it's because, I mean, sure, you could say less baggage or, maybe less experience, but I don't think it's that. I think the children and the kids that are coming in nowadays they have less light. I mean, they have more light. I mean, and thankfully, us adults are doing the work, and these children coming in are, I don't know, or just, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like
That they're
we're
being
changing the
raised in a more
patterns.
conscious way. Their
Yeah,
parents
yeah, they're
are
being
all, well,
raised.
think it's also like the people that you and I talk to, though, because when you go out into like the actual world where most of the
Mhm.
people navigate, like then you're going to have a slightly different experience. And I sometimes forget that like the majority of the people are still living a whole different reality. And then I like cross paths with the actual world, let's call it like the 3D world, whatever. It's all God anyway, so it
Yeah,
doesn't, the labels don't really matter. But then I'm like, oh, I really do live like a hermit. I really do like only talk to a specific group of people. And it's interesting because then I realize like, okay, but I am supposed to be able to navigate in this other layer too, and have interactions with normal people, quote unquote normal people, because that those are all the people that are going to be awakening in the future. And that is why I think it's important that I am not going to detach myself from everybody that is in this world. And like you see a bunch of like spiritual people, oh, let's isolate ourselves, go live in a community on Bali and be away from all these people because they are beneath us, well, or like they are not conscious or whatever. But the thing is, how are they going to be able to reach you? How are you
yeah,
going to lead by example? If we are supposed to be leaders, we're supposed to lead by example. How are they going to see what we're doing if we're
yeah,
all on an island together?
yeah. It doesn't help many people. It's funny. I had a Reiki client, a Reiki session yesterday. So this woman that I've been working with, I've told you about, Deborah, is 78.
Mm-hmm.
And she is just recently started waking up. And her daughter actually was like, last year, she's like, you need your chakras balanced, mom. And she's like, what are chakras? And she's like, well, you've got 3 hours at the airport. Go figure it out. Like, go Google it, because she was heading to the airport. And her daughter was like, I think you need to get your chakras balanced. And so she said, I was on vacation and I said to my nieces when I landed, so she's 78. She said, my daughter told me that I needed to get my chakras balanced. She's like, what's that? And they're like, we've got just the person for you. And she was in North Carolina and they set her up with this, amazing man. He did a Reiki session for her. And she said, Carrie, I'd never felt so much peace in my life. And so she said, I came back to Denver and she said, I was telling my daughter about my experience. And she said, I need to find a Reiki person. And my friend, it was actually, she's a friend of mine. She said, well, her husband actually said, well, Carrie is a Reiki master. And she's like, Carrie is, because I helped my friend like declutter her entire house. So that's how I met her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so her mom starts coming to me for Reiki, and we are having the best time. We are laughing. I mean, she is a Spitfire, and we're having so much fun. And we're weaving in, these really beautiful tools. Maybe it's breath work, maybe it's, tapping into doing like a ball of light, or we're working with crystals and oils and all these different things, but we're having like real conversations about what's going on in her life and what she's experiencing. Well, her daughter just came yesterday to see me, my friend, and she'd never experienced Reiki. She's like, I don't know. My mom's just saying, she's loving meeting with you. So I guess I need to come and experience this. So she's never done this. And we wrapped up the session and she just looked at me and she's like, you're really weird. You know that. She's like, you're super weird. And I was like, yeah, I forget, to your point, I forget that this isn't people's realities, but it was cool because her and I, what we uncovered, I think there was a lot of seeds planted, and she did start to get curious, and both of us shared, some big conversations, and some big things did arise. And she was like, where do we go when we die? What does happen? And we ended up both sharing, some really incredible things. So I don't know if she'll come back, because she kind of looked like she was like a deer in headlights when she left. It was kind of like, she's like, I don't know what just happened, but I was like, it's totally okay. Like, I'll reach out to you tomorrow and check in, and we can keep this dialogue going. But she just was like, that was weird. I was like, I forget
probably also at the point where when somebody says you're weird, you're like, oh, thank you.
Oh, totally. I told her, I'm like,
you're
I am
like,
weird.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's a compliment. It's like in our reality, when you tell somebody, oh, you're so weird. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I did. I was like, I am weird. Like, you're totally right. Like, to me, I'm finally letting my full self out. And I've got lots of parts of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I am super funny, and I'm letting my humor out, which it feels like I literally let a cat out of a bag. Like, because I don't usually allow myself to be seen in that way, but I am actually a super funny, like, always goofy, dancing. Like, I say the great, my family knows me, right?
That's
but
why
I've only
I invited you on this podcast, so that we could be our funny selves.
And
that's
it's
the thing.
So freedom. It's like so freeing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Spirituality is really about letting your inner child just fully out. Because when you're a child, you are probably the most naturally intuitive that you're ever going to be in your life before the programming kicks in.
Yeah. I laugh.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just imagining my little, I used to jump on a bed and play Michael Jackson and like Duran Duran by myself. And I would like that picture that you saw of me on Instagram with my legs up like that. That was what I did as a kid. Like, that was me on a bed, just being my full free self, like putting on a record player, and no one knew what I was doing. I did all of these things in private, which is interesting that even back then I did those things in private. Like, no one knew what I was doing. So I felt like I had to keep, I did it in my room. Actually, I did it in my sister's room when she was gone. She had the record player, she had the cool bed. And so I would like sneak into her room and use her record player and jump on her bed. And it felt like I could be like my alternative self. You know what I mean? Like, it gave me a space to just like explore and get super curious. But I told no one, which is super funny. It's like, even then I felt like I had to be secretive about who I like, that I had this much joy and that I had this much expression. Like, I had to keep my expression to myself. And so I realized, like, I was told that you're too much, you're too sensitive, these things. And so being able to like fully express myself and all of it, like I'm very expressive. And so I really didn't allow that part out of me. And so lately I'm like, nope, this is like, I can feel actually coming out of my heart. It's like an expression from my heart that just wants to expand to all edges of the universe, like it just wants to like
reminds me again of your portrait. I'm gonna put that in here somehow. I'm gonna put this portrait in between, that I'm gonna pause it somewhere and put a picture of the portrait.
Oh, cool.
And where you can just see, it's like you are in the center of the portrait, and then you see all this geometric stuff starting to unfold from here, and it's just like expanding and expanding. And that's kind of what's going on, all this stuff that's coming out of you. And she's just standing there, and she even looks like you, like the face and everything. And that was not at all planned. That just happened. And I'm drawing, and I remember thinking, you look exactly like her. And she's like, well, yeah, that's the whole point. I'm trying to show her that this is her.
Didn't you say something about my arms too? Like I had like, there was a lot of like 8 arms because I remember, yeah, I had a lot of
doing
movement. I
stuff
was
with your
using like
hands and
scarves or
stuff.
something, or yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember, but there was a lot of like geometric stuff, like moving around with your
Yeah.
hands, and I do that all the time too. And apparently, when I'm recording videos, I use my hands a lot when I'm explaining stuff. But I've seen that a lot in the Akashic records with people that are connected to the Pleiades. They do that all the time. Apparently,
Mm.
it's a Pleiadian thing. So
Yeah. I feel like we could do like walk like an Egyptian.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
funny because, of course,
Mhm.
the Pleiadians are also very connected to Egypt and to the Rose lineage and all that stuff. So it's all connected.
It's all connected. I love
Hmm.
it.
I
I
was
love
gonna
it.
say something and now it's gone, and it was so good. I made a
Was it
joke.
about expression or music or inner child you brought up? What were you like as a kiddo?
Weird,
Weird.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
weird. Kind of like my daughter now, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she's weird. So yeah, she's like in her own little world. And I
She's
was kind of
awesome.
in my own little world. And half of the time I was not paying attention in class.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teacher called me, but I was having conversations with all these spirit guides. I thought everybody was having conversations with spirit guides because I thought, oh, okay, because you're not going to ask somebody, are you smelling? Does your nose smell things? Because you assume that it smells things. So you're
Right.
not going to ask people, are you having conversations with other voices? Because you assume everybody hears voices.
Right.
Or
Right.
you're gonna think, oh yeah, when I close my eyes, I see things like everybody. But no, it's not like everybody. Not everybody sees things when they close their eyes. Apparently.
We're all, yeah, we all, that's true, right? Like when you're little, I laugh, think you shared a meme and it was like, it was something about school. What was it? It was a super funny meme. And I was like, oh my God, that was me. Like how many times I got my name
The
written
thing,
on the checkboard or the
like
chalkboard.
everybody that on their
Report
report
card.
card, and it said like talks too much, tell me what you do for a living now. Yeah. Like all
That
these
was
people,
that
they
was
talk.
so good.
They are
Yeah.
either making videos, they're making content, they're writers, they are coaches, they talk for groups, they do retreats with a lot of people where they're teachers. They're all using their voice now for to influence people, to make people happy, to help people. So all these people that are always talking, but then there were a few people that said a few funny things like, yeah, a few people commented and said, I was good with like talking to my neighbor and all that stuff. But the moment I had to go and stand in front of the classroom and talk to a bunch of people, they would shut down.
Mhm.
So that
That was me
also,
too. Yeah, that was me. I have like a very big fright of being on like a stage and like presenting, but I'm giving like even today, I actually am running you brought up frequency. I'm using my little frequency device and I'm running well-being soul. I usually have mental balance come up for me because um my brain, my ego, wants to keep me um safe, right? And so it can be really scary. A lot of us, like you've said, like a lot of us have wounds from our past of, the witch wound or
hmm
um someone that was, leading the way and, a very like a spiritual leader who was killed and, the different things that happened. And so my brain always wants support because my brain just wants to like, nope, can't do that. Like my voice literally sometimes like I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even talk, you know? And so I use like the mental balance programs a lot to support my brain.
and that's the funny thing. It's the people that experience most throat chakra blocks that
Mm.
actually have the most important message to share.
Wow.
Because I used to stutter in school, in elementary school. I had to read, they would go like, down like the whole class, and like everybody had to say something and read from this book. And then it was my turn, and I was already like looking to the right, like these other three kids. I was counting, okay, three more kids, and then it's my turn, and I was already getting all anxious internally, like, oh my god, two more kids, and then it's my turn. Oh my god, one more kid, and then it's my turn. And then I had to read, and it's like, and I couldn't read. And then I'm sitting there like, oh my god, what have I done? Like, why can't I just read, just use words, just talk like a normal person? What is wrong with you? And stuff like that.
Yeah, it's real. I guess I misused my vocal cords when I was little, so I went to therapy to be able to speak, and I actually went to a tongue therapist too because for speaking. So it's interesting that you bring that up. And both of my kids both went to speech therapy, all four of us in our home. Jeff also was stuttered. Jacob stuttered, my son and our son, and he went to speech therapy. And Claudia went to speech therapy. We all went to speech. I'm laughing, but it's like it's such a good point. Like that's interesting. I didn't realize like that was connected. I mean,
Yeah.
I did realize that, but it's interesting that all four of us have. I think that's why I encourage our children to talk and share. It's really important to me because I feel like, again, I didn't have a space where I could share what I was feeling. And I had a lot of feelings and a lot of things that again,
Hmm.
high need to express, and I kept them in. And so I was like, I promised myself that I would offer something different, so our kids are super direct, and they're really quick to tell me like, hey mom, like you are, being a people pleaser, or you're actually really upset at this person, but you're taking it out on me. Like they're
Yeah.
really
So
quick
they
to,
can analyze what's really
yes,
going on. It's the
yeah,
same thing with Nora. And then I will tell her. I used to tell her when we were still in Spain together. Um, I would tell her, like, okay, next time I tell you this or that, like something that I would tell her when I got upset or something, like I would tell her, she would be my little sponsor. Like, next time when I do this or that, remind me of the day where I tell you to tell me don't do that. Remember, you told me to tell you each time you do this thing. So then the next time that it would happen, I don't know, project onto her or something, because that's also something people think, oh, yes, you must be such a spiritual parent. You must be so
yeah,
spiritual. No, you're just a parent, and you're just learning as you go. And
yeah,
then she would look at me, and she was just like, remember yesterday you told me to remind you when you were basically, she's not saying the word bitch, but basically when you're being a bitch, I'm supposed to tell you. And I'm like immediately like brought back to reality, like, oh yeah, I did tell you. Thanks for reminding me. But in that moment, you have to become very humble, and you cannot get mad because you
yeah,
actually asked your child to tell you that. So then you have to like snap out of it and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Thanks for reminding me. And then
yeah.
they're going to recognize that behavior, and they're going to see it's okay to make a mistake, and it's also okay to say sorry for it later and to have a conversation about it.
Oh, just hearing you talk about that, I am so relaxed in my body. Like I literally just like brought my shoulders up and went and took a big sigh because I think you just hit something really important, especially as parents, and the forgiveness piece, because we still laugh today. Like there was a point where something happened between Jacob and I ended up going to therapy because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like I had all of this, repressed anger and experiences in my life, again because of lack of expression, and it was coming out in different ways. And so we can laugh about it now. Like he'll bring it up, we'll talk about it at the dinner table or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I went to therapy. Like that was not okay, what I did. And I went to therapy, and like, hopefully we're all benefiting from my experience, and they get to have that too. Like they get to make mistakes and be like, I'm so sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that I was being, however, like we all recognize our behavior so much more quickly. And the more we can like apologize, I mean, I feel like we're all moving through it really quickly now. Whereas before I may have shut down for a day, a week, maybe even longer, and now it can literally be a matter of seconds or minutes where all of that is repaired and we move through it, like, and then we can laugh about it. So thank you for sharing that. Cause to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what this is about. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is real. Like
It's
we're not
real.
we're not on
In
this pedestal. We're
Yeah.
not, we make mistakes. And I remember a friend, even, someone I had met on Instagram, she was like, wow, I thought your life was perfect, like thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. And I was like, oh, my life is far from perfect. You just met me at a point where I'm here, because I had shared something, previously. I was like, oh gosh, yeah, not perfect. Nope. But to your point, I thought I was supposed to be. I thought that, you know, um, I had so much shame and guilt, around holding myself to this place of perfection because that's kind of how I was raised. Like, you don't show anyone on the outside any of, all of what happens here in our home. It was a complete shit show and some really awful things happened, but everything looked perfect from the outside, so I
Mm-hmm.
promised. Again, it was another space where I was like, yeah, that's not how I want to operate. I think many of us have changed that. Not that we have to like put all of our dirty laundry out, all the
No.
time, but I think, choosing the right opportunities and the right way of
Mm-hmm.
sharing, so that other people know, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one, you know?
Yeah. And that's been my motivation to just really be myself. Because when I was with my ex-husband, which was really not a good marriage, it was a very toxic marriage, domestic violence. You know my story. Some other
Mm-hmm.
people know my story. And on the outside, everything looked perfect. Everything looked normal. There were normal family pictures being posted. But what preceded those pictures was a bunch of yelling. And then, oh, let's pose for a picture. And then once the camera was gone, it was more yelling. It was more arguing. It was more walking on eggshells, all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
people, when I told them, okay, I'm leaving, what do you mean? You guys are so happy. No. And then I realized this is not really what I want to do because you are making other people believe that your life is perfect, which makes people feel like they are not good enough when they see your stuff online because they think, oh, but look at all these people. They have this perfect life. And that's why I'm constantly telling people too that I work with, no, my life is not perfect because every day I have to go beyond my own limitations. I'm being confronted with my own fears. I have to go through my own initiations. So how else am I going to be able to help you if everything is perfect for me and has always been perfect? And you can just tell because now apparently there are coaches. I heard this from a friend a while ago that with AI you can create entire mentorship packages. So the AI creates it for people and they sell it for a bunch of money.
Oh,
So they sell
okay.
these packages that they didn't come up with from their own experience. They just have this artificial intelligence make a package for them. They sell it. But then I'm like, but what if the moment that you talk to this person, aren't you going to notice that they have nothing of value to offer?
I didn't think about that. There's so many things that have come up that I'm like, oh, like my naive self, like my very innocent kind of like, well, isn't everyone in their integrity? Like, isn't everyone? And I'm like, oh,
No,
wow. Okay.
unfortunately not.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think that makes, I mean, I guess with what's possible, so our bullshit meters are gonna have to even be like,
Yeah.
more tuned up, you know?
I think so, because
Yeah.
in this whole spiritual community, and that is why I started this podcast, kind of like a filter,
Yeah.
because some people are not gonna like it that I swear here and there. Some people are not gonna like that I say, "Oh, you can drink coffee. You can drink
Mm,
coffee and still be spiritual." They're gonna be like, "Well, you're not doing it right. You're not doing spirituality right.
right.
I'm not gonna work with you. That's fine. Then don't work with me because I like coffee. I like it a
Me
lot.
too.
I
Me
had a lot of
too.
coffee today because I did not sleep a lot, which is not good. You're supposed to have a good sleep. So
Yeah.
don't listen to that advice. But like the thing is other people are gonna then see, oh,
Mm,
you are still a human being. Do I drink 20 cups of coffee a day? No, because I'm not insane. I don't want to have a
yeah.
heart attack. But if I feel like, okay, I want another cup of coffee because I like the taste of coffee and I could use it because it gives me some energy. Okay, fine, drink a coffee and just make sure that you are still drinking a lot of water. Make sure that you are not doing it to numb yourself or to like not think of your problems, like people that are always eating, that are just comfort eating constantly, for instance, then you're doing it to not look at certain issues. So that's not what I'm saying. Don't just stuff your face with food. Don't drink a bunch of coffee to just forget about your problems or smoking or whatever. But I have a friend who is a hypnosis practitioner who is probably the best hypnotist that I know. And she smokes. She smokes cigarettes. Is it super healthy? No. Am I going to judge her for it? No. Because why? Why would I
Yeah.
judge her? I,
Yeah.
I have no, I know that she every day chooses to live in alignment. She works with ascended masters, she works with star beings. She's really good at what she does. So she's a human being and she smokes. Who cares?
Yeah. Totally.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, doesn't mean that it's for me, but I'm not going to quit my coffee, for example. So,
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point just about judgment in general. Like that's
Mhm.
why I love the medium of like astrology, human design, gene keys is something I'm really getting into, but it allows me to look at someone's like soul blueprint and see certain things in their chart that are so different from mine. And so for whatever reason, I've like so much judgment has like fallen away about how things are supposed to look or be
Yeah.
a lot in like the last couple of months, especially where I would hold judgment, but it was really like me judging myself because I'm not allowing myself to like sometimes I have so much mental energy or so much, I'm getting so much information about things to explore, learn, uh, channel that I will be up for hours in the middle of the night and I'll be
Yeah.
writing or researching or, just in it. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, like you should be sleeping. Why can't you sleep? You're going to be like, tomorrow you're not going to be functioning, right? And I was like, you should have been off your phone. You need to be doing this. But I'm like,
Uh,
but this is
sounds
just,
so familiar.
yeah, I'm like, this is my life. And it's okay. Like, I'm allowed to like ebb and flow and have kind of, in my chart, I do have what's called the channel of rhythm in human design. And I can go to these extremes where I literally just have to allow myself to dive deep into something. You have the channel of depth. Like, there's certain things where now I love helping people see that because it takes the judgment away from ourselves, and the less judgmental we are of ourselves, the less judgmental we can be of others. And like, how great if we could just be in that and be in our, gifts
Hmm.
and give ourselves the freedom to go down these different things, or, allow
Yeah.
ourselves the things that we
Like
we
what may
want.
be basic, like a basic need for you, and that may be to have a very flexible schedule, to not get
Mm-hmm.
interrupted when you are in the flow of your thing. And you cannot predict what that's going to look like, because that's what it's like for me. People ask me, how did you manage to build up this business? By not having a strict schedule, by feeling what wants to come out of me today. But I'm a generator, so they have to feel something before they can take action. Because if I'm going to be taking action, if I have a schedule, like if I would make a schedule for myself and I write Monday, I do this, Tuesday, I do this, Wednesday, I do this. I've tried it 5 million times to make a schedule. It never works. And if then I'm going to be like, oh, I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing it right running a business, then I'm going to tell myself that I'm shitty at running a business when I should just do it completely differently. So I have to look at my entire week, and day by day, I have to look at what sounds attractive from all the stuff that I need to get done this week. What am I feeling today that wants to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have to follow. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means that the first 2, 3 hours of the day, I need to be in my own energy, and that I'm going to be maybe writing. I'm going to be writing. I'm going to be reading. And then I get inspired, and then I start to work. And then I'm working till 11 in the evening. That's what that looks like. And the
Yeah.
next day, it could be the other way around. The next day, I get up at 8, I start doing all this crazy stuff, and I have done a bunch of work at 6, and I'm done for the day. It's just I cannot predict it. This is what happens.
Yeah.
And then people are going to be like, oh, but that sounds very chaotic. That sounds like you need a structure. You need this, you need that. Like, no, this works for me. This is what
Mm-hmm.
works for me. Do not come and interrupt my flow, because this is a
Mm-hmm.
flow. It may be a chaotic flow, but it is a flow, and it's working.
Yeah. I so get you. I judged myself for so long, and that's something I've had to really let go. Like, sure, could I have a little bit more structure? But I realize I'm also like, I know we can say, oh, we're so creative, and that's why we're, I know there are, but that's true for people. Like some artists, like that's just how they work, and when
Yep.
I'm in I literally forget about, you can probably relate to this too. I forget about time, like time doesn't exist. And so when
Time doesn't exist.
I've become not even like, I don't even exist sometimes. I'm
A
so,
channel.
yeah, and that is when I am literally the happiest. Like that, when I hit that to me is like, I want to say like heaven or something, but you start to be like, well, I'm not, you know, I don't know, I look around because like I do have to like, oh wait, we have to eat, right? Okay. Like when I'm so in something, like you said, it could be like 5 p.m. and I realized I haven't gone to the bathroom, I haven't eaten, and
Yeah.
people be like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. And I'm like, well, I don't think so. I'm really happy those days. That to me just
Mhm.
means that I am like doing what I love. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to be that way every day, and I'm not that way every day, but I've really worked to let go of the
Accepted.
judgment. I've learned to accept that these are my
Yeah.
rhythms, and there is some things that I have to do, um, but I think that's why, like even with my, our kids, I do work to like ask them. I like want everyone to be able to do what lights them up and not have to be like for kids sitting at desks, you know, like I know for Claudia, that's not like her ideal, right? And so she loves the social aspect of school, but we don't get too wrapped up. Like she's like, thank you for not putting pressure on me to, um, a lot of kids, will want validation through their grades, validation through academics. And she's like, thank you. And she notices this. We just had this conversation last night. She's like, thank you for not pressuring me. Like it really helps me because when I'm there, I know like I don't have this like worry that like you're gonna judge me if I don't do this or that. And she's
Yeah.
like, and instead, I think it gives her freedom to learn and like ask questions and like she's more she's more enveloped in the experience of it. And I told her, I'm like, I much rather you gain from experience than, to get that A. Because I worked so hard I had to study really hard. School did not come naturally to me. I would like read chapters out loud, record myself, play them back. Like memorization was really difficult of things that I wasn't interested in. I mean, now I can memorize people's charts. I can see things, there's certain things that I have gifts for, but I struggled, in specific things. So it's just another way, I guess, that I want more people to have freedom, around like being able to do that, like create their work schedule. And it's really like I think of you when you're like, yeah, when we were little, eons ago, we came in with our gifts and we were allowed to go pursue that. And like, that's what I want everyone to do, is to be able to like do the thing that's their gift. I want people to be in
Yeah.
their genius,
And I think
and their
more and
gifts.
more kids are just going to kind of force their parents to to adjust to their
Mm-hmm.
children's way of life. Because like I remember when I went to school, like the first 2 years of what is that, middle school, I guess, then I hated school because it was boring. And
Yeah.
I still am that same way, that when I have to do a task that is not something that I'm passionate about, I won't do it. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
happening. And then it's just, or like, no, I can't force it. It's gonna feel like you are torturing me into doing something that feels like just not good.
Yeah.
And so those 2 years I was at school, like, what am I doing here? I'm never gonna use this stuff they're talking about in my life. I'm never gonna like be a biologist. I'm not gonna do any of this. I'm never gonna speak Latin or whatever. Like, I'm never gonna, of course, now I'm listening to Gregorian church music and whatever. But and like I'm like, I wish I knew Latin because then I could understand what they're saying. Should have probably done that anyway. So where was I going with
Well, you're
this? Oh,
studying Aramaic. I mean, the thing you do study language, right? Like there's language
yeah.
that you do study and that
But
you
I wasn't
channel.
really good at
But
languages. I was always very good
mm,
at languages, so that did interest me, but not enough. Like we in Belgium, we studied French and English in school. And English is like, okay, fine, because everything is in English on TV. And then later I moved to the US and I traveled a lot, blah, blah, blah. But then with French, it's like, oh my God, we have to speak French because Belgium is tiny and they speak Dutch here and French. So you have to speak French in the moment that you are in a vehicle for more than 45 minutes, you have to speak another language. So it's kind of necessary that you speak French here. But then the rest of the stuff was just boring. So I got really bad grades. And my dad said, I know that you are smart. You're just not doing any effort, like not doing anything. I'm like, because I can't. It's like I have to take energy, put it in something that I don't like. So it's taking way more energy to do this task because I don't like it. And the only thing that came effortlessly was painting and drawing. So he said, when I was 13, do you want to go to an art academy instead of just a regular high school? We can send you to an art academy where you do nothing but art. Like, okay, let's go. So that's what I did.
oh, good. Oh,
And
good. You did that early on then.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
started
How
art
old were
school
you when you did that?
14. So
14.
basically
Great.
all of high school was an art
Amazing.
school. And
Okay.
we did get stuff like languages, math, like basic stuff, but very minimal, like the bare minimum. And the majority of the classes were all like photography, color studies, drawing models, composition, painting, different types of paint, like learning about different mediums to paint and draw with, all that stuff. And so that was all great, and art history. And I got super good grades all of a sudden, and I didn't have
Mhm.
to put any effort into it. And that's what we should be doing with our children too. Look at what they're interested in. Don't try to
Yeah.
force them.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I look at Nora, yeah, she's exactly the same way. For those listening, that's my daughter. When you try to get her to do something that she absolutely despises, she's just going to make things very difficult for you. And she's
Mhm.
going to not do anything. And it's going to be the most horrible thing that you could have ever asked of her, because she's going to hate every second of it. But then when you ask her to do something that she likes, like she learned Spanish in 2 months' time, she was speaking Spanish. And
Wow.
so she's very good with languages. But
Hmm.
she grew up speaking Dutch and English from the moment that she was born. She heard both languages. So she's really good with languages. So she learned Spanish really quick. And she's really good at art. She's also just a natural healer. And she jokes a lot. She's really funny. And she has
Mm-hmm.
this system, her own little healing modality. I think I may have told you, where she's like, I'm gonna charge you up with some energy, and she puts her hand on you, and she has a little screen, she says, that she sees, because she calls it the little TV in her head. That's like she sees everything on the little TV in her head. And I told her, you're clairvoyant, that's your third eye. Oh, I see everything on a TV in my head. And she sees like statistics and stuff. When she touches
Yeah.
people, she sees the statistics. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 10 gallons of energy, she says. I'm like, what? Yeah, you need to have 14. I only see that you have 7, and I'm going to
Oh,
give you
that's so
more.
cool. She's tapped into people's frequencies,
And
right?
that's
And
what
like,
she and
yeah.
she touched me. She's like, you are okay. You just need a few gallons. And she does stuff, and her hand is warming up. I'm like, well, and then she touched another person. That's when we were living at this farm. And she's like, oh, you are really low. You need at least 10 gallons of energy. And she gives these, but then she got a headache. And I
Mm,
think she was actually healing them. She was actually giving them energy. But because
yeah.
she never
True.
learned how to properly do this, she gave herself a headache. And then
Yeah.
these people that she was healing, they were like, "Oh my God, you were really I gave you the headache because now you gave me all your energy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is super. I relate to Nora a lot. That's super cool. Yeah, because I see things play, as a movie as well, but that's cool, like that she can put put her hand. I mean, I when I do Reiki, I put my hands on people and I'll get flashes of, information. And I will see and hear specific supplements that they need or a plant they can work with,
Mm-hmm.
or specific activities. But the fact that she's like, you need to be charged with, like, she's basically like walking electricity or like
Yeah.
walking,
She does
frequency.
everything in statistics, is like graphic
Whoa.
statistics. And the funny thing is, I saw her in the Akashic records on a big Pleiadian mothership, where I saw you, where I saw all of us.
Uh-huh.
And she has a little tablet, and she's walking around, like writing stuff down on her little tablet, like a checklist of like the statistics of how is the ship doing, and monitoring the well-being of the ship, basically, because it's a living, like, bio organic ship. And she's like, oh yeah, checking the ship, how is everything, how is the oil, how is the blah blah blah. I don't know if it has oil, you know what I mean, like all
Yeah,
the stuff.
yeah.
And she does the same with people. So, and one
She
time
and
we were on
Tesla
the
would have
train.
gotten along well, her and Nikola Tesla. I feel like she has some, like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
major gifts. Keep going,
but
sorry.
she's gonna do some weird stuff later, because she was on the
Yeah.
train once, and she looks at this man, and I'm like, you can't just stare at people, don't look at this man. She's like, yeah, but I was in his little TV in his head. I said, you can't break into people's TV in their head. And she's like, oh no, it was an accident. I didn't want to go in his TV in his head. I said, don't turn that off, turn the TV off in his head. Okay, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. So
Mm.
then I taught her about psychic shielding, and like, you cannot break into other people's energy,
Hmm.
because they're doing it. These kids, they are doing all this stuff without realizing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I worked, I like that you brought that up, because Claudia and I have been talking a lot about, energetic clearing and how to like cut the cords every night. And, when she goes into school, like how she's like, oh, mom, I don't want to, I don't want to talk about this stuff. I don't want to like imagine a color. But the more we've done it and the more she comes home and shares, stories, and then she puts these practices into place, she's like, mom, you were right. Like this helped. Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, imagine, see yourself as having the day you want. Imagine, because like kids would like take her food and, grab her food, and like, they'd eat her food, and she's like, what do I do? And how do I tell people no? And just a lot of boundary stuff. And she also maybe couldn't sleep, or she was getting, sick often, because of just energetic leaks. And so she's like, mom, I did what you said, and it was a great day. Like, I was like, hold the intention, hold the boundary. Like, that is not happening. This is your space. And she's like, no one grabbed my food. No one did this. Like, I'm like, if, just hold that. Like, that is yours, like, this is
Mm-hmm.
yours. That's not. But yeah, it's cool when you get to have these conversations and they become
See,
open to it.
you are a way more gentle parent than I am. It's like Nora got bullied too at one point, and like her dad is unfortunately also that way. Like when she gets bullied, and she told me like, oh yeah, this is happening in school. They're like taking this or that from me. I'm like, what? And then apparently I got a phone call one time a few years ago. One of her teachers said, yeah, she grabbed this girl by the throat. And like, what? And like my first thought was, hmm, what did this other kid do to deserve this? Is what I want to know. Like, but of course you can't say that to the teacher, but I know my kid. Like, I want to know what happened, because why would she do that? And then I hear that this other kid kept bullying her and bullying her and bullying her. And they wouldn't believe Nora. And Nora said, yeah, because this other kid always does it when nobody's looking. So one
Yep.
day she had enough of it, and she grabs this girl by the throat because she was done with the bullshit, basically. And so she talks to her dad. Her dad lives in the US. We were in Belgium at the time. She's on video chat with him, and I tell her, tell your dad what happened with this girl. And I already know how he's gonna react. So she tells him the story. She's afraid, like, oh, he's gonna get mad. And he's like, good job. But I'm like, we're not supposed to say that, I think.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know, but still, you have to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I do have a more gentle approach, but Jeff, definitely we practice this stuff. We actually will go back and like go through what happened that day and like come up with
Hmm. But your way
suggestions.
is
And so,
definitely the correct way, is what I'm trying to say. Like
well,
the way you handled it is probably the way I should also try to handle these things.
well, she did have a confrontation with there was a boy that similar to Nora. I feel like Claudia and Nora are really similar, and I feel like Claudia would just like fall in love with you. You guys would like have a love affair because she's more like you. Like no, I'm serious. She's like Deborah just like pulled her eyes and like, what? But
I'm
there was
Auntie Deborah.
yeah, Auntie Deborah. She was like, she did have some words with him, because she was like, what do I, he threw like, pencils and threw spitballs at her and all this stuff. And, he is like, you snitch, because we talked about how to get support and like, deal with it on your own. But then at some point you have to like pull in, the teachers around, because they're not seeing this stuff happen. And he's like, you snitch. And she was just like, I don't know if she said fuck off, but she said something like, um, I told her to tell him like, we'll make better choices or something. She's like, stop being an asshole. She said to him, she goes, stop being an asshole. And he just looked at her, and there was nothing he could say, and he walked away, and she hasn't had anything happen
Hmm.
since she
And it's
said,
not going to
stop being
happen
an
again. Good
asshole.
job.
Yeah. She's like, stop being an asshole. And
And that's
so he, Yeah, that
I
was it.
think that's a good thing to keep in mind in this whole spiritual community, that even adults, they are going to still cross your boundaries. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to set really clear boundaries with people. And you have to sometimes tell people, really in a very direct way, no, this is not acceptable behavior. You are being a fucking asshole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that is showing a form of love. You are modeling how you want to be treated and what you are available for and what you
Yep.
will absolutely not waste any time on. And that is showing another person, you're giving them a permission slip to do the same.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because that's another thing Claudia and I talked about. I said we train people how to treat us. And so if you're letting people know it's, you know, you're okay with people grabbing your food or you're okay with these specific things, I had a really hard time knowing how to defend myself or how to set, I mean, that's like my life lesson is like learning how to set boundaries and like not be in victim and like say direct things, you know, like I've been given thousands of opportunities to practice this. And so it's interesting because I have that practice so that now I can share it with Claudia and we get to practice together. But I was like, yeah, you're training people how to treat you. So if you're not liking the way people are treating you, you need to retrain them. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
okay with this. And so she will say to friends, like, I'm not okay with, you know, XYZ. And so she teaches me all the time to be like, okay, note to self, like I need to also, you know, I mean, we're practicing these things together, which is funny. Like I'm here as an adult, like I'm still practicing these things. I'm like, how do I assert myself, you know, being assertive versus like passive aggressive or being victim, right? When you get on those drama triangles, like assertion, what does that what does that look like? How does that feel? Like it's uncomfortable sometimes to like assert
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you know? So yeah, Claudia, when she said that, she was like, stop being an asshole. I was like, well, that was a great response. Like you just nailed it and that's
Mm-hmm.
it, you know? But yeah, training what, you know, and being honest with yourself, like what you, if it doesn't feel good, then, you know, you get to decide what you tolerate. And I think at some point, resentment to me is when things come up and I have a lot of resentment, that's like a big clue for me that I overgave or I
Yeah.
didn't respect my own boundaries, you know? And I think this is something I think a lot of, do you feel like the people you're working with, this is like a big, um, message or practice right now? Like this experience that we're talking about right now? Does this come up a lot?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
also towards themselves, that
Mm,
that they are angry with themselves and that they almost start resenting themselves, and like the self-loathing type of energy that some people have. And then
mm,
it's just a cycle that keeps on growing, getting bigger, and then you get stuck in this self-loathing cycle because these people are then angry at themselves for feeling this way, ashamed for feeling this way, and it gets bigger and bigger. And that's why it's important to just show the human side of this entire journey, because you are allowed to just feel everything. You are allowed to be mad. And that's the thing as well in spiritual. Oh, you can't be angry, positive vibes only. No, it does not work that way. We are humans. We're going to feel angry sometimes at other human beings. We're going to be sad, and we're going to maybe not always act right. We're going to
mm-hmm,
act, but then it's like just, it's normal. As long as you then recognize, okay, this behavior was not very conscious. How can I fix this for myself? I now saw that this reaction could have been better. This interaction or that interaction could have gone better. Can I still talk to this person? Can we talk about this, about what happened? If it's been too long, how can I, for myself, have an inner dialogue about that situation so that I can not like feel shame about this forever or something.
Yeah.
And I think in the past, a lot of people just didn't talk about stuff when they did something wrong, or our parents, that they would be like, oh, we're not gonna talk about that because, and then they don't apologize. And then as children, you can feel like you're not being understood by your parents because they never acknowledged the fact that they were wrong, or that how they acted was wrong, or blah, blah, blah. And they may know, or they may feel like, oh, that was not okay. But what good is it going to do bringing that up now? It doesn't matter. And that's why with Nora, I made sure that I told her, okay, can we still talk about this? I know this happened 2 days ago, but I want you to know that I was really tired, or I was not feeling good. But that does not mean that it was okay for me to say that to you, or act this way, or not listen to you when you wanted to talk to me because I was tired. That's not an excuse, but I'm just wanting to let you know that I now see that that was not the right way to act. So that's why I try to do that with her.
Yeah. It brings me
Whoa,
back to
that
your
was a
whole
little,
point.
went on a little rant over there.
Yeah,
A
no,
rant
it just
parent
brings
fuel.
me back to like when you said today, I should do the tagline and say humans having a human experience, like
Yeah.
humans being humans. And that's just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if we can just have more understanding and dialogues like this, I feel like I just keep seeing dis-ease, like the less dis-ease we would have if we know it's not even safe per se, but like
Accepted.
accepted. Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like that would be let's do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
feels like there'd be a lot of like clearing, right? Like clearing things. So,
And it
and
all
that's,
starts
yeah.
with self-acceptance too.
Yeah. And it comes back, I think, to our whole point of the beginning of the humor piece. Like when we can find humor and make it like laugh, I guess laugh at ourselves, like sometimes like not taking ourselves so seriously. Like if we went through something hard and like if we're able to be like, oh my gosh, like that was embarrassing, but like I'm still here. I can laugh at myself. Like, and even, saying, reflecting that in the other person, like, I was just an asshole, or I didn't realize that I was doing this. And like, I don't know. I'm trying to like put this in like a package, but it's not even a package. Like, there's just a resolve, there's like, when I look at resolve, then I think of dissolve, like, then it just dissolves and we're not holding it. We're not holding it in our bodies. We're not, we can still feel, but it like so much dissolves. And I feel like that's the metamorphosis that we're really being asked to do right now, is feel it, yes, but like also dissolve it, and don't let it be in your being,
Yeah.
like just like this big release, and so there's a lot of ways to do that. But when Deborah and I just started laughing and sharing funny things, I'm like, oh, this feels good to laugh. And
Mm-hmm.
it feels like it releases out of my heart space, to be honest. Like when you laugh, you're connecting with your heart. And I feel like I've released so much from things that I've held, like pain, where I can just like, wow, I can find the gift. I mean, yeah, some things were really hard and like you don't tolerate. Like this isn't, like you said, a whole love and light conversation. Like, oh, I'm just gonna laugh that one off, or I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
because then
be in
you're
love and light.
bypassing, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you have to like, sometimes it's having really hard conversations. Sometimes it's being, yeah, super confrontational when you haven't been confrontational ever. But yeah, when we can come back to just realizing that we're all humans and we're all gonna, fuck up and we're all gonna make mistakes, like finding the human nature in each other. I mean, again, there's some really hard things that have been happening or have had that are not funny, right? That are things that are like, whoa, that's heavy. But just connecting on it and just being able to talk about it and share feels like cord to cord, heart to heart, like real. It's like real, being real. So I don't know if that makes sense or where that even came from, but
You channeled it. It was channeled by Geo Lady.
Yeah, Geo Lady's
Geo
in the
Lady.
house.
That's a cool name for a higher self. Like, what's your higher self's name? Oh, it's Geo Lady.
That's all
My
that
name's
sticks.
Geo Lady.
You came up with Geo Lady, and that just
I name
sticks.
all of my portraits.
Oh, cool.
And all these, but it just happened. I don't know if you've ever watched The Flash. I bring that up to so many people. There's what's his name, Cisco Ramon, the guy in the lab. He names all of the villains. He always comes up with these names for the villains. But like I started doing that, not that my clients are villains, but all the people that I made stories about, Akashic stories that I then share, I just spontaneously started coming up with names like Allison is the Galactic Backpacker, you are Geo Lady, then there is the Lemurian Shaman, there is the Dragon Man, there's all these people and they all have names.
So cool.
And they just come to me. There's
Makes
like
sense.
catchy names that kind of capture the essence of the person and what they do, their blueprint, what they do. And then the story about a friend of mine whose story I shared just the other day was the Cassiopeian hypnotist, because I saw her starting in Cassiopeia, the star system, and she then went to the Pleiades, she then went to Atlantis, and she's a hypnotist in this lifetime.
Makes sense. Yeah.
What would I be? What would I be?
Oh gosh.
I've never even thought a name for myself.
Well, what if you're, I mean, I love it's still
I
your
gave myself a
Instagram
name. What am I saying?
photo. Yeah. What are you?
I'm the Gnostic Dragon Witch.
Ah, there you go. Gnostic
That's
Dragon
my
Witch.
name. Yes.
Yeah.
That's my name.
That makes sense. Well, then you have your, is it your Native American who, like that, when you have your half face, like your half?
That's the
Deborah
lady
and
from Scotland.
Okay.
Well, Scotland. Back then it was known as Alba or Pictland because it was a tribe that was like the majority of Scotland back then. I'm doing this course, by the way, with Oliver Huntley. Do you know Oliver Huntley?
I do.
I did the Aramaic course with him, the Wisdom of Light Aramaic teachings with Dale Allen Hoffman and Oliver Huntley. And right now he's doing another course called the Celtic Church, where they go into early Christian teachings. And when Jesus's family members all arrived in Avalon after the crucifixion. So
cool.
The first version of Christianity before the Romans took over and how it got established in Avalon. So that's what I'm doing now. And the funny thing is there's so many connections with this lifetime, this Druid lifetime, like Druidism in England, Scotland, France, Gaul, where I am right now. Belgium is a part of Gaul. So all of these connections. Where was I going with this picture? Yes, that's what that picture is.
Okay, I love that.
And that's where the word pic comes from, actually, from the Latin word picture.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yes, because they would paint their faces, but they were actually tattoos. They would paint and tattoo their entire bodies and faces to go into battle.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say the portraits bring about activations too, because since I have received my portrait, even more so lately, it's been really like coming through, like the Geo ladies in the house for sure. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and those songs, the music, that is the funniest thing. These beings, the higher self, spirit guides, whatever, they really do have their own music style. And I will just kind of feel into, okay, what kind of music is necessary for the process, this painting process. And then they'll be like, it'll be different. Every person's energy is different. Like with you, it was this crazy super geo music.
You would send me the songs and I'm like, oh yeah, that is so me, like that's so, I feel that.
And
So
there was
fun.
another lady a while ago, a Lyran lady, and her higher self was also this elven lady and all this geometric stuff in the background, and it was the same kind of music. So
Oh, cool.
I think a lot of these like electronic like DJs, musicians, whatever, they have a bunch of like geo guides that are just in the background
Makes
dancing and
sense.
stuff.
Yeah, it makes so much sense because it's all geometry, which is funny because I was terrible at geometry in school, but I just see geometry very differently than that.
Mm-hmm.
You
You
know,
can
I
kind of
feel it.
see it like a concept.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Yes.
it's numbers. I mean, I have a very weird way with numbers and how I see them, but it's different than what you learn in school. This isn't
Who
something
was
that
I
you're
having
taught.
this conversation with? Like, do you know Chris, a connected spark on
Yes,
Instagram?
yes, yes.
We were having a conversation, a talk about it would be really fun being a spirit guide. I sent you that meme, I think, this little spirit guide dancing, like when they're keeping you up in the middle of the night, and it's this meme, and this little guide is dancing to some techno music, and he's like freaking out, he's dancing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I would be such a good spirit guide. I'm gonna like bombard my people that I'm guiding. I'm going to just be catapulting signs their way, number synchronicities, making frames drop off the wall,
Oh
like
my
kicking
gosh,
stuff
how
off the
fun.
table.
How fun
Yeah,
to even put yourself in that space because kind of truthfully, we are that for each other now already, right?
yeah.
Like we are activating each other, but I love that aspect of like getting to be a spirit
And you
guide.
could
And what
just
would you
freak
do?
them out and be like, hello, that happened to me once. That actually once happened to me, like how you are now hearing my voice. But I was testing faith. I was testing my guides. I was
Mhm.
16 and I'm sitting on my bed and I'm 16. And at that point, I had been doing automatic writing for a while because I was a weird teenage witch. I did not have many friends. I had invisible friends, and I started automatic writing. So I'm there, 16 years old, and I learned about Archangel Michael, and I knew, okay, this angel is here. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be super stubborn, and I'm not going to move until I hear somebody say hello. So I'm sitting there, and like for half an hour, I'm just like, I'm focusing. I'm going to hear somebody really soon. And I didn't hear, and like the second that in my brain there was a switch from super focused to, okay, fuck it, I'm done with this. I heard hello, like that, like hello, and it like popped through a veil like a real voice. And I went, and it was gone. And you could even hear like a curtain opening and closing, and it was gone. It came out
Mhm.
of another dimension, an actual physical voice that manifested.
Wow. Wow.
And I sat there and I'm like, it worked. It
It
worked. All
worked.
of this stuff is real. I'm not crazy. That's what I was
I'm not
doing at the
crazy.
time. And but it never happened
Yeah.
again. I do hear the voices really clearly, but like
That was
that
like
never
in
happened again.
here. Yeah, that was like
Yeah.
here. Like, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's a pretty cool. I feel like it's just gonna get even weirder. And like
Yeah.
I'm curious like what the
Hmm.
next couple years are gonna look like, you know?
I think 2024 is going to be very activating for those that are already on this journey. They're going to just step deeper into the stuff that they are already in. And there's going to be a whole new layer of people that are going to awaken and that are
Mhm.
going to be kind of confused. And that's why the ones that are already on this journey, they're going to be pushed into purpose to fully embody their mission because they need to, because all these other people are about to wake up. So you better be ready because you're going to be
Yeah,
the ones that they're going to be going to. So if
yeah,
you're still trying to figure your shit out, then these people are going to be like, who do we turn to? So it's your duty to get ready and be ready.
yeah. Yeah. And people, it's like that lighthouse signal, right? Like if we're not out there putting out our light and letting people find us, then I think that's like what's so important right now, like I feel it's so
Hmm.
wild. Like I feel so this like electric energy, like I literally feel like I'm just like a lightning rod.
Yeah,
And
because
so
you're with all the geometric stuff, of course, the geo lady frequencies, you're really feeling those frequencies. And I have
yeah.
that too. Like right now, I like right before this call, I've been working on a lot of images, creating digital images with the help of AI. I've been making a bunch of images for clients about their Akashic records, and I get sucked into this tunnel, and I feel all this. It's like I'm in a little tunnel, and it's a time machine, and it just kind of
Hmm.
moves through these frequencies when I'm tuning into these past lives. Like now, I created images from Lyra, Pleiades, and Atlantis. And I just kind of always, it's like a little elevator, and it's like, okay, we're going to the Pleiades. Do, 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 do. Here we are, and you're in this frequency.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
it's like my office is a time machine. That is
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, it feels like a vortex. Like you literally go into a
Mm-hmm.
vortex and you're like sucked in the best way, and you just get to like, oh, it's like such a fun place of exploration. I love the elevator, going to the different levels and like connecting in, because it is helpful. Like it is helpful. I'm experiencing it through people um who are here and who've passed, but a lot of people who've been on stage, right? Like I think, yes, a lot of people will put down I don't want to say Hollywood per se and like kind of show its darkness, but I feel like these people have been so brave. For example, like Jim Carrey putting himself out there. He's been fully, he's fully shared his story. And wow, like to me, he's like the epitome of like a courageous being who's really, let himself be seen. And he's a lighthouse. Like he is like what he's end up, and he did get a lot of shit for the things that he was sharing, because he's an absolute,
Mm-hmm.
light worker.
And he's a
But
painter too. Did you know
yeah,
that?
I did not know he was a painter. No.
I watched a documentary once about he has an entire art gallery
Oh
where he
wow.
works. He makes really he makes big paintings,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
he's
they're
super
pretty
cool.
good.
He's a super cool person. I've been listening to a lot of like again, it's just I hear people come in and I will be told to look at their charts. So that's like how the Geo Lady comes in is I'll hear a
Geo lady comes
person.
in.
Yeah, Geo Lady's like, "Oh, I got this," and then
Hmm.
I'll look up their charts and I can see what's happening in the transits now and like why these people are important to bring attention because they're in their full a lot of these people really were put and they put themselves in their full light. They put themselves in their full power. For example, like Marilyn Monroe, right? Like she died at a very young age, right? But like when you look at her pattern and her history and what like she was here to teach us, I'll hear them now, like what she's sharing. A lot of them have a really like intense Aquarius in their chart, whether it's their career, whether it's their Mercury or their Venus, like, and now I'm hearing them talk to me. It's pretty freaking wild. Like, I'm like, ooh, this is so
Are you going to
fun.
become the celebrity channeler?
I think, I don't know. It's
Geo
specific.
lady channeling
Geo,
celebrities.
it's weird. Like, I'm like, oh, I never knew. Like, I've always loved when people have shared celebrity charts or like, shown like, oh, this person has a Cancer moon and they're a singer and they're an artist like Taylor Swift, for example. She has a Cancer moon. Well, I do too. And so it's like why I relate to her music because it helps me connect to my emotion and it brings out, these emotions in me or like Goo Goo Dolls. Like there's certain songs and like you'll look up that artist and you're like, oh, no wonder. So to me, it's like a way of sharing these maybe these concepts that people don't understand, but it helps you accept, like if you can see yourself in them, then it
I
helps
wonder
you
what Anthony
accept
Kiedis's
that.
chart would be like.
I can look it up. Like that's
Can you
what's
do it now or what? I
what.
made eye contact once with Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers. I have to throw that in
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yes,
I'll look it
actual
up and
eye
maybe we can like
contact.
add something. Um, but that's what I mean. Like, I mean, it can be anything, right? But there's a lot of right now I'm getting this is I think I'm just finally allowing myself to like be in my gifts. Like just this is weird, sure, but I cannot get enough of it. It's what I naturally have been doing for years. And just like Carrie, why aren't you talking about this stuff? Why aren't you sharing this stuff? Because it's like I just do it at home and I don't share it anywhere. And he's like, you have to start
Mm-hmm.
sharing this. So it reminds me of
Yeah,
my little kid who would like,
do
do
that
these
in the
things.
bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like I want to be hidden, but it's like, no, 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 you have to like, share these
yeah,
things. So
you have to
anyways,
because
yeah.
you're not doing it for yourself. It's just the ego that's like, oh, that's gonna look stupid. Oh, people are gonna laugh at you. When in reality, other people are going to see that is super cool that you are just sharing all of this. That means I can share my stuff too.
Yeah, I'm looking up who you said, Anthony. And so what happened? What did you see?
I looked into his eyes at a concert.
Oh, wait, this really happened?
It happened. I went to a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. I made
Okay.
my way all the way to the front,
Uh-huh.
somehow sat in this guy's shoulders that I don't know, but I just made it all the way to the front. And then he picks me up at like eye height level of Anthony Kiedis. And I'm screaming, of course, because
Uh-huh.
I'm like back then, of course, I was a really big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. And he looks straight at me, and I'm like, oh my God, I made eye contact.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You guys are actually like opposite, you're like mirrors for each other. So his ascending is Libra.
Are we
Like
analyzing eye
I'm in
contact?
yeah, I'm already looking at this like that you guys are literally mirrors for each other. So like where you're an Aries rising, he's a Libra rising, and then his Libra rising is on your Libra sun. Like literally on, so it's like he was shining a light on you. Does that make sense? Like,
Oh,
and he also has he's a Scorpio, and you have your Mercury. I believe you have your Mercury and your Venus in Scorpio. So
yes.
to me, it was him saying, like, I see you, like you guys, there's a lot of similarities in your chart. Um, Especially like Sag, the Libra spaces in you, the Scorpio and the Sag are like, it's like he was a mirror for you. So
Oh,
that's super
how nice.
cool. I
That
mean, I
happened
could
in
go
2006.
and what would be fun is we could actually go. So this is how I work. Like I'll hear movies and then I'll actually go and look when the movie was launched and I'll look at the like astrology for that time. And so that's relating to like now, which has been wild. Like John Lennon, he's a Libra. And I looked at his chart when he was born and like Uranus is in the exact same placement as where Uranus is right now. So like that's like he's coming through and showing like how to break free, you know? And so
Mm-hmm.
anyways, it's weird. I feel like I'm a
Maybe we
different
need more
person.
Carrie. We need more
We need
astrology
more Geo
Carrie
lady.
advice.
Yeah. So I'll
We're
figure
gonna,
this. I mean, I'll figure out how to do this, but I can very quickly because I know your chart. So is that's what's
yeah.
wild is like I actually have I can look at someone's chart and I have it memorized without even like I'll even know the degrees. Is that if someone's an astrologer, they'll get
You
it.
are Geo lady.
But it's weird because I instantly can see the connections and like how everything like
Is connected.
how everything's connected and how we activate,
The
like what's
pattern.
being activated. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I was like, oh, that makes complete sense.
We've
So
been talking for almost 2 hours.
I know, I know. I was like, we probably probably need to
No, I
we
can
could
keep on going. I can also keep on going, but we should probably kind
yeah,
of
we can
wrap it
wrap
up for
up.
the listeners. And then we
Yeah.
can just, because she's going to be back. This is the Astral Attic, and Geo Lady is in the house.
Yeah,
Let's just
I'm
go
trying to
with Geo
still
Lady. You're just Geo
Geo,
Lady. We
just
can't.
Geo Lady.
It's Geo Lady. She's gonna be your resident astrologer slash life
Perfect.
advisor slash just wise woman slash you know a lot about herbal remedies, oils. You know a lot about life. Reiki
Yeah.
practitioner. You know a lot about just everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's the Atlantis. She's like my Atlantis self. That is, which I
Yes.
think is really activating in this Aquarius time. So thank you. Thank you for allowing Geo Lady. You were very pivotal in Geo Lady coming through and me accepting. I've always judged my mental capacities because there's certain things that I really understand and certain things that I'm like, that does not no comprehend. Like, so I've judged myself for how my intelligence works,
Yeah.
because I feel like I have a little bit of a different way, like how my brain works. And
Yeah.
so it's given me like so much love and compassion and like permission to be, this is who I am. Like literally, this is like what I'm, one of the big things is for me to work with these modalities. And I love it. It gives me a lot of energy and it helps people too. The feedback I've been getting as I've been allowing myself, even in the last month, to step more into my gifts. I've been getting lots of really good feedback like, wow, Carrie, thank you. Like that really helped me. So hopefully, not hopefully, I will be offering probably courses and I'm going to set more like readings, like specific offerings up, because I see this in family units too, like for partners and kids. So it can be super practical. Like, how do you use this in your everyday life? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
not just like, sure, I can go super far out in my cosmic but it's also so practical to know, um, different people in your lives and like know how that works with you and to honor each other, so.
They're even showing me this image right now of you just kind of, those expandable spheres, those things.
Yes,
And
that you
you
move in
are
and
like
out.
the
Uh-huh.
Geo lady is expanding this thing and you're like you're giving it to somebody. Like
Mm.
you're uncollapsing this thing and giving it to them like completely just expanded for them.
Oh, I love that. I loved that toy. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I love
Yeah.
that. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
tactile, cool thing too that you can like open and shut and open and
Yeah.
shut. And it's that geometry. You can, oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
It's funny because why am I always bringing this up? I bring that up a lot. Dale Allen Hoffman, one of my Aramaic teachers, he's constantly in his videos using one of these things because he's always referring to the breath in Aramaic.
Mm.
The word breath is the same as the word for spirit for God. And he always has one of these expandable spheres. He's like,
So
you're
cool.
drawing in the breath, you are expanding your consciousness when you breathe. And he's always has one of these things. He's messing with it in his videos. And I'm like, that makes sense. You are like expanding somebody's consciousness by just bringing in your breath because it carries all of these codes, carries
Mm.
all of this stuff, all this information.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, because we were talking about names and I was like cosmic keys. Because I do feel like what's happening is I'm seeing keys that are unlocking. So there's like patterns and keys that are being unlocked so that people are like, oh, like they have these like aha moments of of like the light bulb going off, and it is like coded. It is code. It's like code for our DNA. And I could get really nerdy. So we'll have to come back and because I'm leaving messages for people when they're like, Carrie, what are you going to do with this information? And stuff's happening that I don't even know that I knew how to communicate or talk about. And I'm saying it and I'm like, what just happened? Like, how am I actually sharing this? Like, I guess I know this stuff. Not know, but like,
It's
I don't,
coming through.
it's coming through. It's finally like I'm
Mhm.
finally allowing myself to actually say it out loud. Whereas I was, you know, just keeping it in my room. you know? And so back
Yeah.
to your point of like that, it's like time to come out and expand
Yep.
that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I
Well,
think
thank you.
that's good enough for today. But there's definitely, yeah, but I can keep on going too. And we're gonna just have to invite you back into the attic.
Yes, let's come back. Thank you for having me in the attic, my dear friend.